What do you say we get loaded and start rolling with Thomas Wasson? What's up, my friend?
Time for Loaded and Rolling. The segment, not the newsletter.
Oh.
It's like Spaceballs, the merchandise, you know? That's what we
right.
do. Loaded and Rolling, the newsletter. I'm not very creative, but had a enterprise fleet summit that recently concluded yesterday.
Okay, yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Yesterday was awesome. It was a great summit.
Great job with everyone involved, especially. You know, we had some really good interviews as well, and you know, I highly recommend everybody check it out. We talked a lot about driver recruiting, training, how to deal with the market, how to overcome the market right now, and then also just a lot of things about even culture, establishing the right kind of culture. So it's super, super exciting, and you know, it was on us. It was just a blast. I did not win the cooler though, unfortunately, but watch out. We've got the zero
Well,
carbon.
you're an exempt employee. You're exempt from winning prizes.
I know. My March Madness bracket didn't make the cut.
You didn't get the slippers either, huh? Luke Flusca snatched them from you, didn't he?
It was sad. There's always next year though, but.
So what else is going on, man?
We got a lot going on in the trucking market.
Yeah, we do.
You know, we have right now quite a bit of declining volume. Class 8 orders are relatively flat, and I think a big thing to focus on for the viewers is fundamentals. When the market starts going downhill, you have to kind of actually pay attention to the fundamentals of trucking. Not the, I'm going to add on additional $500 over what the market says or what the averages are telling us. Actually having to figure out what are my costs, what is my utilization, you know.
So you're talking getting back at X's and O's, blocking and tackling.
Blocking and tackling.
Let's talk about that a little
Shout
bit.
out to
Freight 101, right?
Shout out to a former load planning director if he's watching. Blocking and tackling. He was a Nebraska fan though, so they used to do really good blocking and tackling.
Used to.
As a Tennessee fan, we try, but we'll get there one day. So, you know, fundamentals, like you said, and it really boils down to utilization. So when McDonald's makes hamburgers, the unit of output for McDonald's is the hamburger.
Right.
The place that makes it is the restaurant. Where in trucking, the unit of production, you know, you have the tractor, the trailer, you haul it for revenue miles. Miles driven that you're paid for. So a lot of times when you first get started, you're thinking, what is my rate per mile? It's really easy for people to calculate when you start, but it's kind of also a little bit of a misnomer. So we take all of our costs, which are, you know, our expenses and variable costs for your cost per mile. Then you have your revenue per mile, you subtract them, and then you cry because your margins are razor thin. But, you know, it's important to understand that as these markets change, there's going to be a lot of pressures, and you have to really pay closer attention to where do I want to go. Conveniently, Sonar has information to help show you where you want to go, and I'll have a few maps later to show. You know, we talk about lane optimization, and so deadhead, reducing the amount of miles traveled to the next location. If you are in an unfavorable market, did you price yourself to move back? And if you're in an environment right now where rates are declining, you're in a very awkward spot because you don't have the pricing power. You have to move into markets where you have just a chance of managing to get away. And then finally, booking. If you're a small carrier that has to book your load every day or in advance, you may take a hit, but if you have a load out of a backhaul area like Florida and you book it further in advance, you're going to take a lower cut, but you also have a load. You have to think about what is the value of my entire team? How much money does it cost me if I take $200 less per load, or did I waste $200 of my time between me, a load planner, and another person doing a same-day plan? And a lot of times you forget about that. So like when I worked at an enterprise level, the opposite. Am I taking tenders into the right market? Am I getting my entire level, filling the bucket?
Yeah, you're talking about balance.
Load balances. And it's crazy to think because a lot of people don't understand large trucking carriers have an internal market. So when the broker asks, why did the large carrier fail to pick up my load? Well, it's because internally that large carrier may have been plus 15 loads over capacity in like the Ohio market. And it's hard for them to conceptualize because when you work with, as a broker, most small trucking companies, you're going to know in a 5-truck fleet if Bob really has his truck.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's those balances and those overbookings, underbookings that are going on, but also the planning 1 or 2 steps ahead, right? You've got to be looking where it is because sometimes it makes sense to go even to get to a market where you're going to make that revenue or that margin that's going to make up for both of those, right?
Correct. And you have to, depending upon how you want to do, you're either riding the rails into a place that goes really far out and you get paid to go in, and then you have to just take a hit coming out, or you can just stay clustered into large metros, areas that are experiencing, favorable load per truck ratios, and then you're hoping statistically that you're in a good spot depending upon where you go. And we're starting to see those changes. Like California used to be really, really crazy.
Yeah, right now all the enterprise fleets are going to the wells. They're going to the big market share because they got to keep that freight moving. They got to keep wheels moving, right?
3% rejection rates right now.
Yeah, they're dropping in big markets, right, to where they were 2019 levels.
We're going back further, and we see right now with ports in Shanghai as well as other factors. Trucking is an information and knowledge-based game, and so I think a lot of the things that when people first get started, they don't understand just how big these big economic swings are. And if you pay attention to the consumers and you pay attention to some of these regional trends or how the supply chain works, you can better position your assets. Right.
Yeah, if you want to see how big those swings are, just pull up the outbound tender rejections and look at the swings from 2018 to today.
It's a nutty.
It's a sine wave. Is where it is. We're heading back to those levels of 2019. And 2018 was just as high as last year.
Yeah.
It was that. But it was a much shorter expense of time that it was so high, right? Which is the issue that is going on now. What are those 101s that are going to help you through this market where you've got just record levels of operating authorities that came on, right?
It really does, and if you're a small owner-operator or a smaller company, you have to set yourself up for success, but also realize your length of haul. So you can do a lot of shorter length of haul loads, but by the way, you just got loaded out where the 400-mile load, now you got to get another one. Now you got to get another one. So thinking about it's almost an art form. You have your driver's potential, your driver's characteristic. Maybe this is a 400-mile-a-day driver versus a 600-mile-a-day driver. Now that you know that information, you're going to figure out, do I want to get them on a load that's shorter for more revenue and kind of kick up that rate per mile, or do I want to stretch it out and position them into another further market? And that way I'm kind of allowing myself to work on the next load, and I give myself some time to try and pre-book an assignment or something. So, it's so hard as a small carrier. You hit one delay. There's so many delays right now. All it takes is a good 6-hour detention, and the day at the beginning of the week, you have to try to claw back that time, because you don't want your driver to wake up at 2 a.m. every morning, and then 3 a.m., then 5 a.m., then 6, because of his hours, how his cycle works. If you get a 6-hour delay, the cycle gets thrown out of business, and then you start getting yelled at by the phone because your driver's like, I'm tired all the time. What's going on? So that's where you have this dynamic. Large carriers, you have planners that pre-assign loads, and you're preload drop and hook. You're in and out a lot of times, no touch freight. But for smaller carriers, you have to be really, really careful. Commodity, location, type. When I say commodity, grocers and stuff may pay very well, but 6 hours later, you actually lost money than if you may have picked a plastics manufacturer or a smaller,
Yeah, pulling up to a food warehouse, and then there's lumpers and new wood.
You didn't have the bride. You should have brought the bar. I swear to you, this happened. I had one of my drivers going up to like Detroit. I don't know if it was we're not going to name names, but it was a very well-known food distributor, and he said, "Dang it, Thomas, the person I usually bribe at the dock is not here.
Is not there, so you're yeah.
8 hours later instead of 2 hours.
Yeah, that's they're rough to deal with. They're definitely. So thinking about that, but that's the question. We'll kind of end on this question, I guess, because we got about a minute and a half left here. But so, do you think there's the bloodbath, right, that we're talking about, the potential or the imminent bloodbath in trucking that is coming? We're going to see trucking companies, smaller ones, falling out, right? You think that is exacerbated by the fact that we had a lot of people entering a market where you could fall down and find a load and get paid?
Yeah.
And they don't have those fundamentals in blocking?
They don't have, there's no time, and they learn bad habits. Anyone, look at the data for, like, that. If we showed it right now, it'd go, oh, everybody's entering because the cost was the opportunity's there, it's incentives. And so anyone could just throw it out there and just get a truck.
Yeah, if you had an authority, you were making money.
You could make tons of money. And now that it's getting lean, the experienced operators are now able to say, all right, well, gravy train's over. It's time to go to the lean times. For these new operators, they're going to think, what's going on? Why are my costs going up? Oh, by the way, I shouldn't have got this truck that's now worth twice as much, and it depreciates, and now I'm underwater. There's a big real risk if the used truck prices decline. We're not talking about the big short. We're talking about the short different rig where basically your truck could potentially put you underwater based on how you financed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got some banks holding notes that could go south on them.
And banks get a little finicky when it comes to financing trucks.
Yeah, they do. And they don't want to own the trucks. They're not in it to own those trucks. And then
So if you want to expand your fleet, just wait another 6 months because it looks like we may have some people exiting the market. There could be some deals to be made, unfortunately, but fundamentals overall seem fairly sound at the moment for the overall economy.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Thomas. Catch him on freightwaves.com and catch his newsletter, I guess it is, right?
Loaded and rolling. Coming out today as well. Watch out.
Yeah, watch out.
Keep an eye out.
Right now, I'm going to toss it over to Anthony Smith and our first shipper update of the morning.